So what does the biggest mean? Biggest year? Biggest year, you're going to see the biggest transformations. You're going to see the biggest change of consciousness. And it's not going to be at all what the mind right now thinks. It's not. Because if you're saying, oh, good, I'm going to be able to walk on water and I'm going to be able to know everything. And, no. There's something that goes far beyond. You know, consciousness is an interesting thing because you are truly pioneers of consciousness or pirates of consciousness. And consciousness is funny because when you don't have it or you're limited, you don't realize what it's doing. You don't realize how consciousness has changed history, incredibly so, over a very, very short period of time. I'm going to say just 1,500 years ago, consciousness was so different. Think or feel for a moment, not think, feel for a moment. A lot of you were incarnated 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 years ago. Your human mind now thinks, oh, it was just me, but I didn't have a car or internet, and I wore kind of funny clothes, but I was just like this back then. No. You didn't have nearly the consciousness. Do you realize back 1,500, even 1,000 years ago, that most people were slaves? Not just a few. Most people were owned by royals. Owned. And what's even stranger is they didn't question it. They didn't need a lot of guards and armies and police to keep the slaves as slaves because you didn't question it. It was your lot in life. Now, there was kind of, you could say, an overlay that kept you in line. And one of my favorite things to not talk about is the Roman Catholic Church. It was a great, for those of you with that background, take any church, put it in place, and it's the same macchio. The church kept you in place. The very unconscious beliefs in some God that really doesn't exist, thank God for that. But you were told that you had to be a servant, you had to serve God, you had to serve your masters, you had to lead a hard and suffering life because this is what God required. And you know, you believed it. You didn't really question it back then. It went on and on. Without patting myself on the back, because I'm going to let Linda do it here,
Ooh.
a pat on the back. I, along with a few other esteemed, now ascended grandmasters, were the first to talk openly about freedom. Openly. Do you realize that back 500 years ago, if you'd talked openly about freedom, openly about freedom, you would have been arrested, you would have had the trial about 10 minutes later, and you would have been hanged or burned or guillotined immediately. Now we can talk about it like this, but consciousness was so different. Consciousness was unconscious, and I could go on and on and on with examples. Do you realize that in this world, the first true democracy did not really exist until about 100 years ago? And you say, oh, no, but the Greeks. No, my friends. The Greeks and not so much the Romans, but the Greeks. No, they thought about democracy. They contemplated it. And they had certain democratic activities with the elite. But it wasn't open to everybody. I don't really consider that a democracy when it's not open. Just because you have 10 rich guys sitting around and voting about how the rest of the empire will be run is not a democracy. And you say, okay, but America, the first practical, practicing democracy goes back to 1776. Nah, it wasn't really democracy here until actually, in my opinion, about 40 or 50 years ago. And it's still not real freedom. There are still those who do not have the same entitlements as the others. It's much better than what we were 300, 500 years ago, but my friends, there's still not freedom. Don't kid yourselves. Don't kid yourselves at all. So back to my point, whatever the point was. Consciousness. In the next year, you have the opportunity to become much more conscious, aware, knowing. And it will surprise you and amaze you at times during the year. Write it down if you would please for yourself or share it. How much you were unconscious before, how much you thought you were on a spiritual journey, but you were really unconscious.